Follow me as we create a fun and trendy spool wreath together. Not too many supplies. I will end up counting how many spools of thread I'm actually going to use for this project. I have no idea, but as you can see from my bowl here, oh, I am in love with some of this thread. They're old wooden spools that I actually got from my mother-in-law. Her mom was a seamstress. Some of the colors, I mean, are just so beautiful. I am choosing to make this for a friend who is herself a seamstress. Every time I ask her to mend a garment, shorten a garment, she always speedy quick. And of course, I don't think she's charging me what she should be charging me, always giving me a deal. Her work is just beautiful. She has a shop in her home, so I want to make this for her door. So that everyone that comes in her home knows instantly the minute they look at her front door, yep, that's where the seamstress lives. While I'm waiting for the glue gun to heat up, I did also want to mention that this would be another viable option for your wreath. If you wanted to put spools of thread on something like this, what I would do is just take a little bit of the thread off. If you wanted to sew them on, you could attach them through the wire. So it would be smaller, but this would be super cute as well. And I know that they have these at the Dollar Tree. So keep that in mind. It doesn't have to be this type of wreath, that there are other options available. Okay, here's another tip when it comes to wrapping. What I did is I took the yarn completely off of the spool and I opened it all up, and as I'm wrapping, I'm making sure, you'll notice here, that I'm going almost to the end, so I'm not wasting any ribbon overlapping. That's not necessary, because we're going to need as much ribbon as we possibly can use to wrap this wreath. And then I'm holding it, if you notice, I'm holding it with my thumb as I'm coming around with the next wrap to kind of catch it. But I'm being very intentional about not overlapping the ribbon, because I don't want to run out. I want to be able to just use this one spool of ribbon, and I believe it's 4 yards. So that gives you a general idea of how much ribbon it will take to cover this styrofoam wreath. And again, if you notice, I'm just barely overlapping, and then I'm catching it with my thumb. Okay? And by no means does it have to be perfect, but I am trying to keep as many creases out as possible, because I want it to look nice and flat, especially in the back, because that's going to be up against her glass door. And like I'm always talking about the back of our work, we want the back of our work to be neat and clean. You would think you could just be really quick with this particular process, but in order to spread the ribbon out as much as you can and to get it to look the way you want, you have to take your time with something like this. If you've watched my tulip video that I have, you'll see that this is the same process that I use for the tulip wreath, wrapping the base ribbon. One of these days I am going to make a ribbon wreath of all different types of ribbon. I think that would be really cool too. And we're almost there. Okay, now I'm going to go one more, and then I'm going to flip it over to the back, and I'm going to glue it. And at this point, I really don't have a back or a front, so you can decide what you want to make your back or your front. And you see, I'm just gonna, you could even make this the front, and you know, that's what I think I'm gonna do, because then this seam will get covered with thread. So I think that's what I'm gonna end up doing. Make this my front, and no one will even see that. Or the other thing I thought, depending on what type of hanger you have, you could make this your back and do a ribbon hanger. But that, again, that's completely up to you. I think I'm gonna wrap it one more time, and that will bring it. For my scissors. These aren't my good cutting ribbon scissors, so I'm not sure how they're gonna do. Okay, so our base is complete. All wrapped. Next step that I'm choosing to do, you don't have to do this, but I am choosing to do this. I am going to get some Elmer's glue, and I'm going to take each spool, and I'm going to pull the thread really, really tight so that you don't have any loose threads. And then I'm going to take a paintbrush, and I'm going to put glue on all of my spools that I intend to put on the wreath. Now the purpose for this is not that it would, but I don't want it in any way. Once it goes on the wreath, I don't want any of these threads to become loose or to get caught in some way. So this is just a preventative measure on my behalf that I've decided that I'm going to go ahead and do by coating all of the spools of thread. So I'm going to go ahead and get the glue and all of that, and I'll just show you a quick clip of what that looks like before we move on to next steps. Okay, so this is my next step. I have mixed some Elmer's glue with water. I've gotten a very small paintbrush, and I am simply painting some glue on the spool. We know it's going to dry clear, but I am simply just catching that thread on the spool, and then I'm going to move on to my next one. So as you can see, I've gone ahead and I've started to place one of my spools. I did use a florist pin, like I said I thought I would. What I'm going to do is I have a florist pin in there. I've threaded it through the thread on the spool and then into the styrofoam ring. I'm going to come in. I'm actually also going to add some glue, probably E6000 or a super glue. I just want to make sure that they stay on the wreath. I'm afraid if I use hot glue that, given the change of the temperature here in New Hampshire, some of them could fall off, and I do not want that to happen. So let me show you. This is what I've done. I've gone ahead and I fed through one of the florist pins. I love this label. I want the label kind of showing. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stick the florist pin in like so. And then I'm also, like I said, I'm going to add some glue to that to make sure that it stays. And then you won't even see this pin because I'm going to come in with another color, whatever that ends up being, covering up. Let me get that back so you can see it. Covering up that pin with another spool, so that won't even end up showing. But I just, like I said, I want to make sure that they're on here good and tight. So that's why I'm reinforcing. I'm doing the floral pin and the glue. What I would probably recommend doing is take your different colors and kind of space them out around to figure out where you want to put your variety of colors so that you don't get in a spot where you end up having all the same colors close to one another. Okay, so you get the idea. I'm going to stop here. I'm going to work a little and then I'll come back and show you my progress. Okay, I have started to make some progress on this. I would definitely recommend you use floral pins. You push them in. I'm just catching them in the thread. It takes a little bit of time. You got to be a little patient, but I'm catching them. Of course, this one's now that I'm trying to show you isn't going to work, but I catch it in the thread and then I push this in to the floral, the styrofoam ring, and then on top of that I'm hot gluing. But this is definitely so secure. I'm not worried about that going anywhere. So good tip. I would definitely recommend the floral pins. Thread it through some of the thread on the spool, and if it's styrofoam, you can actually poke it right through the end of the roll and then use those to attach it. So as you can see, I've made quite a bit of progress on this. I've actually been working on it on and off for a couple of days. What I ended up using on some of the spools, because this here is very heavy wooden spool. There was a couple other. I used E6000 on those, and then I'm still using my floral pins on some of the pieces, and I'm also using a glue gun. So what I've been doing is, if I decide to use a floral pin, I put that in, and then in addition to that, I use hot glue. Now down here, I don't know if you can see, but I started to kind of line the inside, and I've got one here with a floral pin, and then also I put it right into, this is what the spool looks like, and I am using those to line the inside of the wreath all the way around, or some other. I have several of them, and they're just, you know, rather plain in color, and they're pretty much going to be hidden. I'm trying to put the real colorful pieces on the top, but like here you can see I've got a gap, so I'm actually going to fill in. I'm going to put one of these over on this side. I haven't quite figured out which one I'm going to use yet. I'm still working on that. But you also want to make sure that you have a good balance, meaning that it's the same, you know, width all the way around. Nothing protrudes too much. It's pleasing to your eye when you look at it. So eventually when I get this top finished, what I'll start to do is I'll probably hang it up and then look at the outside perimeter to make sure, see, because what I'm seeing here, I know it's laying down, it's probably hard for you to see it, but it's almost like this one might protrude too much. So I might need something that's a little bit smaller. I have this one too. Unfortunately, at the top, it's got all this. So what I might end up doing is just cutting this and gluing it so that it doesn't continue to unwind. But I'm going to stop the video here for a moment, take care of this, and then I'll turn it back on. One tip I do want to share with you is that you want to some degree plan out where you're going to put things ahead of time. I had a lot of really beautiful wooden decorative spools. Like, I've decided that I'm going to lay that one there. And I've also decided that I'm going to take this one that has this writing, and I am going to use it to fill in there. So ahead of time, you want to kind of plan out where you think you're going to put things. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to thread this with a floral pin. Some of these I tried to thread and the thread was so old. The thread was so old on them that I couldn't even do it. They started to rip. So I never really know until I start to go through it. So I just do that. I bring it down as low as I can. I think I might shorten this one just a little bit so I don't have as far that I have to push it in. And then I'm going to put it right here. Just like so. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to use my needle nose pliers to push that in all the more. And then I'm going to follow it up with some hot glue so that I know for sure it's in nice and tight and it's secure. Oops, didn't glue that one in yet. And I've even, once I put the hot glue on, I've been holding it for quite a while so that I know that the hot glue actually has taken. And a lot of these are styrofoam, so it's a little bit easier when you're trying to glue on the styrofoam. Now I'm getting to the point where I don't know if I want to give it away. I'm so happy with the way that it's coming out. Definitely, if you desire to make one of these, be on the lookout for some really interesting thread at yard sales or at thrift shops. You could make such a fun color combination. I've also seen it done where they've taken spools and they put fabric. So if you don't have enough thread, you could also add some fabric in to kind of stretch out. Maybe you know someone that's a quilter or somebody that is a dressmaker and you want to use different fabric. That would also be really fun. I think the hardest part is deciding where you want to put your pieces for good coverage. So I'm really happy to report, rather than having to go to the Dollar Tree, I just happened to mention what I was looking for to my daughter, and my mother-in-law had given her a whole sewing box full of thread, so many different colors. I mean, they're just going to be perfect. I also got the small ones as well as the large ones. So no trip to the Dollar Tree for me. Got some really cute wooden spools to continue that same theme. As I said earlier, I'm just going to continue working around the wreath, filling it in. Okay, so finally, here is the finished wreath. It took a lot longer than I thought it would. But again, I haven't worked steadily at it. I would give yourself probably 3 or 4 days to work on it. I know at the beginning of the video, I also told you that I would tell you approximately how many spools of thread I used, but I lost track just because I used some rather large spools, like this green one here was really good size, and then I used some really small to fit in the cracks. So I would say roughly 200 varied sizes. I do want to just talk about the back. If you've watched any of my other videos, I always say it's just as important for the back to look as good as the front, because you want it to be a good finished piece. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to cut some fabric, and I'm going to attach the fabric to the back. I'm also going to add a hanger. It's hard where I'm giving it to someone. I'm not quite sure which way she'd like it to be, the top or the bottom, but I'm going to just go ahead and try to figure that out myself. I also would suggest, I do this with all my floral pieces. I always go and I hang it on the door before I say that I'm finished, and I just check it to make sure that from every angle there isn't any holes, any misshaping, and I did already go ahead and do that. I hung this on my front door, and I'm really pleased with the shape of it. I think it's very appealing to the eye. So that's an important tip that you don't want to forget when you're working on something like this. Okay, so this is what I've come up with, and I'm really happy with it. What I did is I had a spool of 4-inch wired ribbon. I actually got it at Hobby Lobby on clearance for $1.50. And what I did is I pulled out the wire, and I have gathered the whole string, you know, the piece that I needed. I measured it, I kept it attached, and I gathered all the way around the wreath. I used some common pins to just hold it for right now, and I got the gathering the way that I liked it, and then I cut it. In fact, over here you can still see the wire is still attached. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut another piece, and I'm going to do an inside circle, gluing it down in and tucking it in. It'll be gathered just as this one is, but you can see how nice this is going to finish off the back. And then of course when I flip it over, you don't even see it, but it's just also going to be nice up against the wall. I'm just really happy with the way that it's going to look when it's all done. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my glue gun, and I'm going to go around the whole entire wreath, attaching the puckered, I'll say, ribbon to the base, making sure that I get all the spots so it's really secure. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the inside circle. What I will do is I'll keep it pinned, and then as I get up to that particular area, I'll pull out the pin and then just hot glue it all the way around. So I thought I would add this clip in just for good measure. What I've done is, this is actually a next piece that I had left on the roll. I do have another roll if I don't have enough, but I'm hoping I can make this work. What I've done is I found the middle, and I've pinned that, and now I've taken both ends of the wire, and I simply am just pulling it to gather it, pull it up, and try to make the gathers rather even. And then what I'm going to do, I'm finding where I want it to go, and I'm just, for the time being, I'm just taking a pin, common pin, and I'm just going to tack it in, and just continue to work all the way around the perimeter of the wreath, tacking those pieces of lace, the edge of the lace, the gathered edge of the lace in place. Continue with the tacking, try to get this wire out of the way, because I want to show you how I'm going to do that after because I know the video's light, but the sun is really coming in my window right now. So again, I've run out of white pins, not that it matters, but I'm just going around and I am just tacking in this piece of ribbon. Because I know once this wreath goes up against the wall, this is going to go flat. It's just protecting the back and covering up some of the things that I don't want seen. Now my end, what I'm going to do on my end, I'm actually going to tuck the ribbon in on the end so I don't have any unsightly end. I have a nice finished end. So I just tucked it in, and then I'm going to just gather it up and pinch it right where I want it. Put it right there. And then I have another end right here. Put my glasses on. I'm at the age where I need my other glasses, where I am going to, this is pinned, but to tuck this in as well and just have those two ends meet. And when I glue that, I will cut. I'm going to glue down all these raw edges and I'm going to cut all of that. So none of it's going to show. But that's what we're going to have, a nice finish edge on the back of the wreath. So I'm going to go ahead now with my glue gun. I'm going to leave these long wires until I get over here with glue and glue all that down. But I'm going to go ahead with my glue gun and I'm going to glue the seam, making sure that I get in all the spots. What you want to make sure you do as well, while you're gluing all that, you want to flip it over and you want to make sure that everything looks okay from the front. Thanks so much for watching this tutorial. I hope you learned a thing or two. I know for me it was such a sense of accomplishment to complete something on my bucket list. It's also got me thinking, why in the world do I wait so long to do some of the things that I really desire to do? I hope this video stirs your heart in the same way. And I hope if you haven't subscribed to our channel, you will do so that you can come back and be part of this community where we strive to get creative together.